Want to level up your leadership? Welcome to The Boss Coach.
Hey boss, how's business? Patrick got me talking in metrics. Hey boss, how's business? I'm the boss coach of my own moves. Hey boss.
What a great band. Look for their new album coming out soon. I think it drops April 31st. Don't miss it. So hey boss, how's business? Hey, how are you holding up? First quarter was stressful, wasn't it? You probably got a lot going on in all of your company, so I hope you take time for your own mental health. Once when I worked in the coffee business, the owners knew that we had a really busy period and I was stressed out and the team was stressed out. So they walked me across the street to a parking lot at a performing arts center across from the coffee shop, and we just stared at it for a bit and they said, "Looks pretty small from over here, doesn't it?" And that really put things in perspective. So don't be afraid to take a walk across the street and realize that your world's pretty small after all. Well, thanks for clicking and listening. My name is Patrick McGranahan. Welcome back to The Boss Coach. If this episode was shared with you by a very thoughtful friend or a coworker and you are new, please check out the podcast trailer. That is episode 100. Gives you background on what The Boss Coach is all about, what my mission is, what my journey is. And of course, check out season 1 for lots of really helpful stuff like all the basics of being a great leader. Well, speaking of basics, I wish everyone knew how to drive, right? Have you ever been behind two slow-moving vehicles side by side? Drives me nuts. I call it the rolling roadblock. Happened to me recently and it backed up traffic for like a mile. So annoying. But how about roadblocks at work? That's when you're trying to get promoted, trying to advance yourself, but something invisible seems to be stopping you. Whether you're an individual contributor, a junior leader, a mid-level leader, whatever, you can still hit this roadblock and it feels like it's getting harder and harder to move up. Now, we've talked a lot about how to get promoted. You just need to be outstanding at your job, impeccable. First and foremost, an overperformer. And they'll give you a leadership opportunity. But that doesn't always work. And plus, sometimes you're overperforming and you think you're doing everything right, but it's just like you're stuck behind these slow-moving side-by-side cars. A roadblock.
And, Martin, you better take a look up the road there, fella, because we got us a roadblock.
Well, never fear, boss. We'll get you around that roadblock. We're going to go over the 5 things that are most likely holding you back, and then, most importantly, what you can do about it. Now, I'm telling you now, you may not like some of what you hear. And in fact, some of it just might piss you off. But we have to be brutally honest with ourselves, right? And each other. Okay, so from my extensive research, let's go to roadblock number 1. Right out of the gate, this one is hard to hear. You truly haven't earned that promotion. Ouch. So putting in your time isn't enough. Studies show that younger workers like Gen Z, for example, think that they should be promoted within 18 months. It's not how that works. That's not how any of this works. Remember, promotions aren't rewards. They're opportunities for a new role. A position has to be open, and they rarely create new roles out of thin air. Average time in anybody's position is around 3 years, but that gap goes up the higher you go. So it may take 3 years from supervisor to manager, then maybe 4 years to director, and then maybe 5 years to senior director. You get it. All right, so what do you do about this? How do you get around this roadblock? Well, first of all, read the job description. And if there isn't one, ask. And if they don't have one either, make one yourself for the next level above you. See what you still need to do to earn that role. Put it in writing. Make sure it's clear. Then set up a professional development meeting with your leader to declare your intentions and talk about the path to get there. Your career progression is employee-owned, but leadership endorsed. Don't forget that. Okay, so how did I get around this roadblock? Well, I have experienced this one, and when I was new at our current company, I was sure I earned manager. I was just positive, but I didn't really do that homework. So when I did the research, we agreed on a development path and job description with my leader. I had something to work for, and then it was irrefutable on paper. I had checked off all the boxes, and it was time, and I'd done the work, and I'd done the homework, and I got that promotion. Okay, boss, let's look at roadblock number 2. You're invisible. It's like your lamp is under a bushel basket, to quote some famous scripture. You don't want to be the best kept secret, right? Even high performers miss promotions if senior leadership does not know who they are, or they lack a sponsor who advocates for them. That's a more senior leader that can help them out. That's why I keep telling you to be that sponsor for a young leader. Be the one who lifts them up. Be a leader who makes leaders. It's especially bad when there's turnover above you, and then new senior leaders bring in their own little clique from their past work who have no interest in getting to know people at your level. I like to say that when I go through that, I spend time amassing a large fortune in a currency which no longer exists overnight, and that's super frustrating. So what can you do about that? Well, if you're feeling invisible, you need to network. You need to get into working groups, get into meetings and projects. I know you don't like those, boss, but they really are necessary to get noticed. You make friends with project managers too. I'm telling you, that's the big secret. Make a friend with a project manager because they can plug you in to all the big projects with all the right people and put you where you need to be. You want to produce scorecards and OBRs and give people a reason to see your name and get yourself in front of senior leaders, even if it's just from an email. Get acquainted with as many people as possible so you are always top of mind. That's how to stop being invisible. All right, how did I get around this roadblock? Well, this was a problem when I was trying for director level. So we had just merged with another company. My bosses were all new, and I was starting over again. Like I said, all my fortune went away overnight. So during that merger, I asked to go on a meet and greet tour. So go to the new offices with all the new people and really get to know people. And that got me noticed and respected for my influence. I just had to show them who's boss. No pun intended. All right, roadblock number 3, you have no soft skills. Yikes. But hey, you know it's true if you don't. Employees are often overlooked if they lack such skills as communication, influence, mentorship, or the ability to manage conflict, showing that they're not, quote, ready for the next level. Have you heard that before? Not ready is the death blow. Now, this goes back to our soft skills are hard episode last season, and then the EQ episode also talking about emotional intelligence. You can be an overperformer as an individual contributor, but then fail as a manager if you can't inspire, motivate, or lead with empathy. Fortunately, that's been natural for me, but these skills can be learned. You can overcome that roadblock. Okay, well then how do I do that? Just to summarize the prior episode on this topic, you want to work on your self-awareness that regulates your emotions. People above you can tell if you're not regulating your emotions. That means they don't think you can handle it, hence not ready. You want to focus on motivating others, right? Your new value is going to be what you can do to make other people perform well as well. So make sure you have one-to-one meetings. There's a cadence of those. Prioritize the culture of the team. And are you too proud or cocky to take feedback from your leader? That's also a problem. It's their decision to promote you, so listen to what they have to say. So how did I get past this roadblock of having soft skills? Well, like I said, I'm pretty confident in my soft skills, but I did have a new boss who did not understand me, nor want to get to know me, nor respect soft skills. So I arranged skip-level one-to-one meetings with him and my reports, and then they told my soft skill story. They proved my value. He came away and said, wow, you have raving fans. And when he said that, things really opened up. They have to be aware of your value, and not having soft skills is a bad way to prove your value. All right, looks like a roadblock number 4. You are indispensable. What? Wait, is that a bad thing? I'm going to say it again, boss. If you're irreplaceable, you're unpromotable. One more time for the cheap seats. If you're irreplaceable, you are unpromotable. It's also called the anchor effect. Managers may avoid promoting you because you're just too valuable in your current position, and they lack a replacement. It's just too convenient to keep you where you are rather than train someone new. If you're that go-to fixer, if you know where all the bodies are buried, you're just too valuable in your current role. Let me just say it this way. You've increased the value of your own role to where you're actually upside down in role economics. All right, sounds terrible. How do you get past being indispensable? Well, you do a bad job. I'm just kidding. So this idea of being indispensable and too good at your job may be hitting home, right? So don't freak out. It does have a solution. But it has a runway. You got to be patient. But there's only 2 steps. Step number 1 is groom a successor. Pick somebody great from your team or another. Bring them over. Train them up to replace yourself. That's really the best way to do it. Step 2, communicate that to your leader. Hey, I'm building capacity to prepare for my goal of high-level responsibilities. And of course, they'll go along with that because you've done that job for them by replacing yourself, whom they thought was irreplaceable. All right, how did I get past this idea of being indispensable? So when I was running a coffee shop in East Lansing, Michigan, there at Michigan State University, there was an opening coming up soon at a bigger location in a Big Ten school. And I had just turned around my current shop and saved it from closing, actually, I'm happy to say. So they literally said, hey, you're invaluable. Well, that made me scared. So I hired an assistant manager and I trained her up to be my replacement. And then I told the owners what my plan was, obviously. And by the time she was fully ready, they actually came to me as I was getting ready to transfer to the new location and said, you know, we told you to hire someone better than you and we think you did. Of course, later I was like, wait a minute, but I know they meant well. All right, finally, roadblock number 5. You've outgrown the company. Again, ouch. So I was just speaking with someone today, actually, whose last company told him that he'd have to leave in order to get any opportunities or get anything other than an annual 3% raise. Then come back later, reapply in a couple of years, and you'll probably get a promotion. You'll probably be hired at a higher rate. Otherwise, he's trapped at that darn 3% increase every year. I know that's bonkers, but a lot of times new hires sign on at a higher salary than tenured employees. The role economics just don't work out. I call it career refinancing. You have to leave sometimes to a new role where they're paying more starting salaries. And then sometimes sometimes it's true. You just need to hop to a new company. I like to say that employees are either a fern or a succulent. Okay, hear me out here. So you know succulents, if you know anything about plants, they grow to the size of their pot, but only to the size of their pot. Some people grow into the opportunity that's given them. Okay, that's it, and that's a succulent. Ferns, however, don't care how big you think they're going to get. They will outgrow every pot you put them in. So it's like people who basically keep demanding new roles because they outgrow everything, just like a fern outgrows their pot. So the roadblock could be that there are no positions open, or maybe that people above you aren't going anywhere, right? And they're not making new roles and the company's not growing as fast as you are. So you got to know when you've peaked and when it's your time to move on. So how do you actually do that? Well, I would give it one last shot, boss. Have that conversation, ask what other opportunities there are, make them say there aren't any, make them go on record and say, nope, we've gone as far as we can, there's nothing else for you. And then you begin your job hunt. That one deserves its own episode, of course, but before accepting a new role, make sure to get clarity on what the org structure looks like above you so you don't get yourself in the same trouble again. All right, how did I get past this roadblock of outgrowing the company? Well, when I worked for an insurance annuity broker, there was room to grow, and then they reorganized, unfortunately, and lawyers took over much of the compliance and legal functions I was shooting for. I even got my AIRC, it's Associate Insurance Regulatory Compliance, but of course a JD is much better. So they had changed the rules, so I walked away. Well, those are the 5 roadblocks. Number 1 was you haven't earned the promotion, ouch. Number 2 was you're invisible. Number 3 was no soft skills. Number 4 was you're indispensable. And number 5 was you've outgrown the company. It's important to check yourself on this. Take wisdom from BoJack Horseman. If you've ever seen that cartoon, it's actually pretty amazing on Netflix. His agent named Princess Carolyn used to keep him humble with this phrase: "You're not good enough at this job to be too good for this job." That's a mantra I tell myself, and it's hanging on the wall. You're not good enough at this job to be too good for this job. Keep yourself in check. All right, for one last lesson on this subject, let's look at the emotional aspect of wanting but not receiving a promotion. You can be really hard on yourself about this. You can get mad at the company, you can feel betrayed, vocalize your frustrations, and all that just makes it harder to be seen as promotable. They keep saying, you're not ready. It might drive you to want to leave prematurely even. So you have to assess if you're really done or just upset. Is there more for you there? If so, maybe you just need to outlast after you've already exhausted your outwit and outplay, to put it in Survivor terms. There's a whole nother episode there later. But if that's the case, keep your attitude in check and press on. See, I've actually been keeping something from you guys, boss. I've been in this situation a couple times in my career, most recently actually, and I was feeling roadblocked for a promotion just since I started this podcast. Actually, I've been going through that, and I was experiencing this just until a couple weeks ago, as a matter of fact. I'd been jockeying for promotion for, a couple of years, and I was getting frustrated, but I got it in check. And I did everything that we just talked about in the past several minutes. I persevered, kept my eyes on the prize, I did my homework, and I'm happy to say that I just got that promotion. Remember the Call Your Pocket episode where I talked about where I'm shooting for and everyone should decide how far they want to go in their career? Well, I'm right back on track for where I want to end up, and I'm really happy about that. But I'm just going to take the time and enjoy the moment and then start to work on the next step and the next, hopefully, promotion. But here's what you could do right now to level up your leadership by clearing roadblocks to promotions. In the comments, this is an easy one, I want you to tell me which of those 5 you're going through now, those 5 roadblocks. Then, to be accountable, tell me what you're going to do about it based on my advice. Do it specifically, and that way we can all take a look at your journey as well. You'll thank me in the very near future. Well, now I'll thank you for your time. I'm Patrick McGranahan, the Boss Coach. Make sure to follow the Boss Coach on Spotify. Some platforms have you subscribe, you know the business. Either way, you just want to be notified of new episodes, of course, right? Thank you to my new subscribers too. I've got some of those. Also to my international ones. And a special shout out to all of you sharing my episodes with all your coworkers. And remember to like and leave comments. That's what the algorithm likes, of course. Earlier, we just talked about commenting on what your roadblock is. Keep sharing the episodes, like I said, especially people experiencing promotion roadblocks. I'll bet you know a few of those. They will definitely thank you for that. And finally, thanks for engaging in TikTok and Instagram. People are enjoying my Boss Cat and Boss Pug little shorts that push our most recent episodes. Those are fun and they're getting a lot of views. I'm just happy that you see me scrolling through on your For You page. Heck, it even pops up on my For You page. All right, well, until then, I'll see you next time on The Boss Coach. Back to work, boss.
Come on, baby. Don't you roadblock me. Come on, baby.
Thank you for joining us today for The Boss Coach, hosted by Patrick McGranahan. We'd also like to thank our associate producer, Hannah, and consulting contributor, Stephanie. Original music provided by Sono AI Studio. All statements and opinions by our host and guests are solely their own observations and may not reflect those of their contemporaries or employers. Please check out other episodes of The Boss Coach for more valuable opportunities to level up your leadership. Until next time, I am your announcer, Ava. Have a great day, and as always, lead with your heart.